I was at a church in Oklahoma one time, and there was a lady came up and knelt down by herself, and I wasn't getting any word. And then the pastor got up, walked to the back of the church, probably seated 300 or 400 people, and bent down and said something in this man's ear. And the man got up and walked down the front and knelt down beside the lady. And the pastor just came over to us and said, "This is her husband." That's all he said, "This is her husband." Okay. Now, what you need to know is that her husband was an alcoholic. And he would go on drinking binges, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months. He'd lost several jobs because of it. But he would be in the church for like a few months, and then he'd be out of the church on a drinking binge. And then he'd be in the church for a while, and then he'd be out because he'd never truly gotten saved, given his life to the Lord. And he'd actually been on a drinking binge for, I don't know whether it was a few weeks or a few months at that time. I think it was a few weeks. But anyway, he came home the day before. And his wife said, "Hey, they're going to prophesy over me tomorrow at church. Would you come?" And he said, "Yeah." So he came, and what we found out later was he was actually still a little sauced. And so when the pastor went back and said, "Hey, would you like to see if they have a word for you?" He went, "Yeah." And so he came down the aisle and he knelt down. And immediately I got this word. And so I went up and here's what I said. I said, "In and out, in and out. You're in for a few months and you're out for a few months. But the reason is because you have a curse of alcoholism over your family. You're an alcoholic. Your father was an alcoholic. Your grandfather was an alcoholic. And God comes today to break the curse of alcoholism over your family and set you free if you'll say yes to Jesus." And the guy went like this, "Yes!" And he got saved and sober right there. And 4 years later, I'm back at the exact same church, and the pastor brings this couple up to me and says, "Hey, do you recognize this couple?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "This is In and Out." It's In and Out right here. This is In and Out. And I remembered then, and they didn't even look like the same guy. And he said he has never had a drink since that prophecy. And he went to Bible school, and he now pastors our Spanish-speaking congregation.